What would you do if someone mocked you in front of everyone? Most people would be embarrassed, but not Lily Green. Lily Green stepped into the luxury restaurant with a quiet confidence that many would never understand. Her black and white uniform was nothing special, just the standard attire for a waitress at Merton's, one of the finest dining establishments in town. Her apron was spotless, and her movements were smooth, precise, as she guided customers to their seats, smiling politely and professionally. But behind her calm exterior, Lily wasn't just any ordinary waitress. She had a secret, a talent that no one knew about. As she approached table 6, she noticed a group of well-dressed businessmen, their voices rising with laughter as they discussed everything from the latest stock market trends to their extravagant vacations. "I don't know why they keep hiring people like her," one of them sneered, barely glancing up from his phone. "A waitress? At a place like this? She doesn't even belong here." Lily stood frozen for a moment, the sting of their words cutting through the din of clinking silverware and murmured conversations. But she didn't flinch. Instead, she set down the water pitcher with a practiced hand and smiled, her eyes glinting with something unspoken. "Anything else, gentlemen?" she asked softly, her voice calm and even, despite the humiliation. "No, not right now," one of the men replied, a smug grin on his face. "But you can tell us, what's your hobby? Playing the piano, maybe?" His words dripped with condescension, and the others chuckled at the thought. "What? You think a girl like you could play piano?" Lily's heart beat a little faster, but she didn't let it show. "Actually, I can," she replied quietly, her smile never wavering. The men laughed louder now, one of them even shaking his head in disbelief. "Really? You're going to play piano?" another man asked. "Go ahead, impress us, sweetheart." Lily's gaze flicked towards the grand piano tucked away in the corner of the restaurant, barely visible to the diners, yet well known to those who had frequented the establishment for years. The challenge had been thrown down, and she could feel the weight of their mockery. Without a word, she walked over to the piano, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble floor. As she sat down, she took a deep breath, letting the tension melt away for a moment. Her fingers rested on the keys, and she began to play, slowly at first, the gentle melody filling the air. At first, it was nothing special, just a soft and graceful tune that seemed to blend with the atmosphere of the restaurant. But then, as her fingers moved faster and with more precision, the notes began to flow with a clarity and brilliance that no one had expected. The businessmen's laughter slowly faded into stunned silence as Lily's fingers danced across the keys. The music was exquisite, every note resonating with such beauty and emotion that it left the room breathless. For a moment, the world seemed to stop around them. There was only the sound of the piano, and the growing realization that the woman they had mocked was not who they thought she was. Lily's music filled the restaurant, captivating everyone who heard it. The customers at nearby tables turned their heads, their conversations halting as they listened in awe. The men at the table sat in stunned silence, their jaws slack as they finally understood this wasn't just a waitress. She was a pianist, a master of her craft, and they had been blind to her true abilities all along. As the last note lingered in the air, there was a moment of perfect stillness. Then, slowly, the applause began, tentative at first, but then growing louder, more enthusiastic. Lily stood up from the piano, her expression serene, and turned to face the men at the table. The smug grins were gone, replaced by expressions of shock and embarrassment. The man who had mocked her the most was now speechless, his face flushed with humiliation. Lily didn't say a word. She simply nodded, her composure intact, and walked away, leaving the group to digest the reality of what had just happened. The music had done what words never could. It had silenced the room, changed the atmosphere, and left everyone in awe. Lily Green had proven that no one, no matter how simple they seemed, should ever be underestimated. As the last note lingered in the air, Lily Green stood up from the piano with a serene expression, her fingers gently brushing the keys before she stood tall and walked back towards the kitchen. The silence in the restaurant was palpable, but not for long. Whispers began to ripple through the room, some with disbelief, others filled with awe. The businessmen at the table, who had once mocked her, now exchanged glances, their earlier arrogance replaced with a quiet embarrassment. One of them, a man named David, who had been particularly rude, shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his eyes locked on the piano. He had assumed she was nothing more than a simple waitress, but now, everything had changed. That was incredible, one of the other men murmured, almost to himself, his voice shaky. Lily walked back to the staff area, her head held high, unaffected by the stares she knew she had earned. She passed by the kitchen door where the head chef, Mario, watched her. He smiled slightly, his eyes twinkling with a mix of admiration and understanding. Mario had known Lily's secret for years. She had always been a talented pianist, but she kept it hidden, working quietly behind the scenes, never wanting to attract attention. She preferred to let her music speak for itself when the time was right. And today, the time had come. Back in the main dining room, the customers who had witnessed the performance were still reeling from what they had just experienced. The tension in the air had shifted, and a new level of respect had been earned for the woman they had once belittled. The men at the table, now deep in conversation, couldn't help but glance at Lily every few seconds. They had underestimated her, and now they had seen a side of her they never thought possible. David, still unable to fully process what had just happened, cleared his throat and tried to regain some semblance of composure. I didn't know, he muttered, his voice barely audible. I'm sorry. I was wrong. The others nodded in agreement, some looking at the piano, some at Lily, but all silently acknowledging the truth. She had proven them all wrong in the most graceful and unexpected way. Meanwhile, Lily returned to her station in the back, her face soft, but her mind alert. She had done it, not just for herself, but for anyone who had ever been overlooked or judged unfairly. It wasn't about revenge or showing off. It was about standing her ground and letting her true talent shine, regardless of what others thought. As she prepped for her next round of tables, Lily couldn't help but smile to herself. The challenge she had faced was more than just a mockery. It was an opportunity to show the world who she truly was. Her fingers, still tingling from the keys of the piano, knew they had made a statement. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. The men who had once mocked her now seemed oddly silent, their attention focused on their food and conversation, but never fully escaping the lingering memory of the music. As Lily moved between tables, she could feel the change in the air. Something had shifted. It wasn't just her performance that had left an impression. It was the fact that she had stepped into the spotlight when most would have shrunk away. She had taken back the control that had been unjustly stripped from her. The night wore on, and the final courses were served. Lily moved effortlessly, like she always had, but now, there was something different in her steps. A quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. She was no longer just the woman who brought water to the tables. She was the woman who had played the piano and changed everything. The evening continued on, and Lily moved through the restaurant with the same quiet grace that had always defined her. Yet, something had shifted. The atmosphere felt different now, lighter, more respectful. The men who had once mocked her were still present, their conversation quieter than before, their gaze often flicking toward her as she worked. Lily had noticed it, the way they looked at her now. It wasn't just the usual polite nods from customers, but a look of acknowledgement, of recognition. She couldn't help but smile softly to herself. She had made her point, and it had been heard. As the night went on, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that the world had, in some small way, changed. She hadn't just played the piano. She had stood up for herself without saying a word. She had shown them all, with nothing more than her music, that she was not someone to be underestimated. And that was enough. A few hours later, the restaurant was winding down. The final orders had been served, and most of the guests had left, their meals finished, their conversations winding to a close. Lily moved to the back of the house, ready to finish her shift and call it a night. As she entered the break room, she found Mario, the head chef, leaning against the counter, his arms crossed. His usual serious expression softened when he saw her. "You did good out there, Lily," he said with a smile. "I knew you had it in you." Lily laughed softly, shrugging off his praise. "It's not about that, Mario," she said. "It's just, sometimes, people need to see more than what's on the surface." Mario nodded, a knowing look in his eyes. "It's a shame, though," he said, his tone thoughtful. "People often overlook the ones who make things happen. You've been here for what? How many years now?" Lily paused for a moment, thinking back. 5, she said. 5 years of working in the kitchen, running plates, cleaning tables. never once letting anyone know what I could do. Mario gave a small chuckle. Well, tonight, everyone found out. I'm glad you showed them what you're really made of. As the words left his mouth, there was a knock at the door. A familiar voice called out from the other side. Lily. It was David, one of the men from the table earlier. She hesitated for a moment, wondering what he could possibly want. But then, she heard his voice again, a little softer this time. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for what happened earlier. I was wrong to judge you like that. Lily took a deep breath before opening the door. Standing in the hallway, looking somewhat uncomfortable, was David, the man who had mocked her the most. He held his hand out to her, a gesture of sincerity that she hadn't expected. I'm David, he said, his tone quieter than before. And I wanted to apologize for how I treated you. Lily stood still for a moment, surprised by the sudden shift in his demeanor. After a beat, she took his hand, shaking it firmly. Thank you, she said, her voice calm but steady. It's not about apologies. It's about understanding that no one should be judged based on what they appear to be. David nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. You're right. And honestly, I'm glad I got to see it. You're incredible. Lily smiled, the words sinking in. She wasn't sure if David truly understood what she had been through, but his apology meant more than just words. It was a recognition, a shift in perspective that could only come from someone willing to see beyond the surface. It's okay, she said softly. It's just who I am. With that, David gave her a small smile and turned to leave, his footsteps retreating down the hallway. Lily stood there for a moment, letting the quiet wash over her. She had earned that respect, not with words, but with her actions. And that, in the end, was all that mattered. The following week, things at Merton's had returned to a sense of normalcy, but Lily Green couldn't help but notice the subtle shift in the air. The restaurant, which had once felt like just a job, now felt like a place where she could truly be herself. The waitstaff, the chefs, the regular customers, everyone treated her with a newfound respect, a silent acknowledgement that she was more than just the woman who brought food to the tables. As the days passed, Lily found herself reflecting on what had happened. The simple act of sitting at that piano and playing had changed the way people saw her, but it had also changed something within herself. She had always known she was capable of more, but it took that one moment to realize that she didn't have to hide her talents or be ashamed of them. It had taken years of quietly working behind the scenes, but now, Lily had finally allowed herself to step into the spotlight. One evening, as the restaurant's hustle and bustle quieted, Lily found herself sitting in the staff break room, her thoughts wandering. It was then that Mario, the head chef, came in, carrying a tray of leftover pastries. Hey, kid, Mario said, setting the tray down in front of her. I've been meaning to talk to you. You know, I've worked with a lot of people in this business, but you've got something special. And I don't mean just your piano skills. Lily looked up at him, surprised. What do you mean? She asked, genuinely curious. Mario leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. I've seen how people look at you now, how they respect you. It's not just because of the piano. It's because you've got that quiet strength. You don't let people push you around, and you don't need to prove anything to anyone. That's rare, especially in a place like this. Lily smiled softly, her eyes reflecting a deep sense of gratitude. I don't know if I'm all that, she replied humbly. I just did what I needed to do. Mario chuckled. Yeah, that's the thing. You didn't go out there trying to prove something. You just let your actions speak for themselves. And that's why everyone respects you. He paused for a moment before adding, I've got a friend who runs a local music school. She's looking for someone to teach piano, part-time. I think you'd be perfect for it. Lily felt a spark of excitement in her chest, but it was quickly followed by a sense of doubt. Teach? I don't know, Mario. I've never taught anyone before. Mario gave her a knowing look. You've got more than enough skill, and the way you play, well, it's not just about technique. You've got heart, and that's what makes a good teacher. He smiled. Think about it. You don't have to decide right now, but don't sell yourself short. Lily sat quietly for a moment, her mind turning over Mario's words. She had always loved playing the piano, but the idea of teaching was something she had never seriously considered. She had always been content to play for herself, to lose herself in the music, but now, the possibility of sharing that passion with others seemed so much more real. The following day, Lily decided to visit the music school. She wasn't sure what to expect, but as soon as she stepped through the door, she felt a sense of belonging. The school was warm and inviting, filled with the soft sound of piano keys being played by students. The owner, a woman named Linda, greeted her with a bright smile and a handshake. "Lily, I've heard so much about you. Your piano playing is something else," Linda said, her eyes sparkling. "I'm really glad you came by. I think you'd be a great addition to our team." As they sat down and discussed the details, Lily found herself growing more and more excited. The thought of teaching, of passing on her love for the piano to others, filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. It was a new challenge, one that would push her out of her comfort zone, but she felt ready for it. Later that evening, after she had signed on to teach at the school, Lily returned to Merton's to finish her shift. As she walked through the door, she felt a sense of pride in what she had accomplished. She had taken a leap, trusting that she was capable of more than she had once thought. The night passed as it usually did, but this time, Lily felt different. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She wasn't just the woman who played piano for a moment. She was a teacher, a pianist, and someone who had found her voice, not just in the music, but in her life. And as the night came to a close, she knew that this was just the beginning. It had been a month since Lily Green started teaching at the local music school, and every day felt like a new chapter in her life. The first few weeks were filled with nervous excitement as she navigated her role as a piano teacher. She had never imagined herself in this position, but with each lesson, her confidence grew. Her students, a mix of young children and adults, were eager to learn, and Lily found herself thriving in this new environment. She had been surprised by how much she enjoyed teaching. It wasn't just about showing them how to play the piano. It was about inspiring them, just as she had once been inspired by the music herself. There were moments when she would look up from the piano keys and see her students' faces light up, their eyes filled with excitement as they finally grasped a new concept or played a piece flawlessly for the first time. Those moments made it all worth it. It was then that Lily realized how much more she had to offer. She was no longer the quiet waitress at Merton's. She was someone who could share her passion and knowledge with others, helping them find their own voices through music. Her own journey had come full circle. One afternoon, after a particularly rewarding lesson with a young girl named Emily, who had struggled with confidence, Lily sat at her desk, taking a moment to reflect. She thought back to the days when she had felt unsure of herself, when she had kept her talent hidden from the world, afraid to show who she truly was. But now, here she was, teaching others to embrace their own abilities, to be proud of what they could do. It was a powerful feeling, one that filled her with a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. That evening, as she prepared for another shift at Merton's, Lily's thoughts were interrupted by a text message from Linda, the music school's owner. "Lily, I've heard great things about your teaching. We're having a recital next month, and I'd love for you to perform. It would be a great way for the students to see their teacher in action." Lily's heart skipped a beat. A recital. She hadn't performed in front of an audience in years. The thought of playing again, of being the center of attention, made her feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. But deep down, she knew this was another opportunity to step into the spotlight, to face her fears, and share her love of music with others. Over the next few weeks, Lily practiced daily, preparing a piece she had loved for years. It was a challenging composition, but she felt a connection to it, a deep emotional resonance that made her want to give it everything she had. She knew the recital would be a test of her abilities, but also of her courage. The night of the recital arrived, and Lily stood backstage, her heart racing. The music school had been transformed for the event, with candles lining the stage and soft lighting casting a warm glow over the room. As the audience settled in, Lily's nerves began to settle as well. She was no longer just the teacher. She was an artist once again, ready to share her soul through the music. When her name was called, Lily took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The spotlight was bright, but all she could focus on was the piano in front of her. She sat down, her fingers resting lightly on the keys, and began to play. The music filled the room, each note ringing out with clarity and emotion. Lily felt the weight of the years fall away as she lost herself in the piece, her fingers moving with precision and grace. It was as if the piano and she were one, each note a reflection of her journey, her struggles, and her triumphs. The audience sat in stunned silence, their attention fixed on her. It wasn't just the technical skill she demonstrated. It was the emotion, the depth of feeling she poured into every phrase. As she reached the final note, she let it linger, allowing the last sound to fade into the quiet. The room was still. For a moment, no one moved, no one spoke. And then, slowly, the applause began. It was a soft ripple at first, but it grew, louder and more enthusiastic, until it filled the room with a roar of appreciation. Lily stood up, her heart swelling with pride. She had done it. She had stepped out of the shadows and into the light, not as a waitress, not as someone to be judged by her appearance, but as a pianist, a teacher, and a person who had finally found her voice. As she walked off the stage, Linda was waiting for her, a broad smile on her face. "That was beautiful, Lily," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "You've inspired all of us." Lily smiled back, feeling the weight of the words settle into her soul. She wasn't just a teacher now. She was someone who had made a difference, not only in her own life, but in the lives of others as well. The weeks that followed Lily's recital were filled with a new kind of energy. The respect she had gained from her students, her colleagues, and the people at Merton's made her realize how much she had underestimated herself all these years. No longer was she just the quiet woman in the background. She had become a role model, someone who could inspire others with her journey, her talent, and her quiet strength. One evening, as Lily finished her shift at the restaurant, she found herself in the back office, going through a stack of paperwork. The hum of the busy kitchen and the clinking of plates had become almost comforting, a familiar backdrop to her work. She was used to the routine now, the rhythm of serving customers, taking orders, and making sure everything ran smoothly. But tonight, something was different. As she reviewed the schedule for the coming weeks, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Mario, the head chef. "Lily, I've got a proposition for you," the message read. "The owner of Merton's is looking for someone to help with the restaurant's private events. They need a pianist to play for high-profile dinners and special occasions. I think you'd be perfect for it." Lily's heart skipped a beat. The idea of playing at private events, for people she didn't know, was both thrilling and intimidating. It was a huge step forward, a chance to elevate her role at Merton's in a way she had never imagined. After a moment of hesitation, she replied, "I'm interested. Let's talk more about it." The next day, Mario sat down with Lily during a quiet moment between lunch rushes. "The owner really wants to bring in live music for special events, and we've been looking for someone who can play piano for these gatherings," he explained. "Your performance at the recital caught everyone's attention. You've got the skill, and now it's just about stepping up to the next level." Lily nodded, taking in the offer. Playing for private events wasn't something she had ever imagined herself doing, but it felt like a natural progression. She had always known she wanted to play for more people, to share her music with a wider audience. But this opportunity felt different. It wasn't just about playing for an audience. It was about creating an experience for others, bringing music to the atmosphere of an event in a way that could transform the moment. After agreeing to take on the role, Lily began to prepare for her first event. She spent hours practicing, choosing pieces that would set the right tone for an elegant dinner, a corporate gathering, or a celebration. It wasn't just about playing the right notes. It was about setting the mood, creating an atmosphere that would make the evening memorable. The day of her first event, Lily arrived early to the restaurant, her nerves buzzing. She walked into the private dining room, where a long table was set for a corporate dinner. The chandelier above cast a warm glow over the space, and the soft chatter of the guests created a sense of anticipation. Lily sat at the piano, her fingers gently brushing the keys as she tested the sound. For a moment, the room felt like it was her own world, the music filling the space, creating a sense of calm amidst the bustling energy of the event. As the guests began to arrive, Lily played softly in the background, the notes blending with the conversation, adding a layer of elegance to the evening. As the night went on, she began to relax, letting the music flow through her, feeling the connection between the piano and the audience. For the first time, Lily realized that music was more than just an escape for her. It was a gift she could give to others. The event was a success, and the feedback she received was overwhelming. People were impressed not only by her playing, but by the way she had transformed the atmosphere of the evening. Word quickly spread that Merton's had a new pianist, and soon, Lily was playing for more and more private events, each one different. Each one a new opportunity for her to share her music and create something special. One night, after another successful event, Lily sat in the break room, reflecting on how far she had come. She thought back to the days when she had worked at Merton's simply to get by, when she had hidden her talent, not wanting to draw attention to herself. Now, here she was, teaching, performing, and doing what she loved, all while being recognized for her skill and passion. The path she had taken hadn't always been easy, but it had been worth it. She had stepped out of the shadows, embraced who she truly was, and found a way to share her gift with the world. As she prepared for another evening of music, Lily felt a sense of peace. She was no longer just a waitress or a teacher. She was a pianist, an artist, and someone who had learned to trust herself and her abilities. And that was the greatest reward of all. Months passed, and Lily Green found herself in a place she never imagined she would be. Her life had transformed in ways she hadn't even anticipated when she first sat at the piano at Merton's all those weeks ago. Now, she was teaching, performing, and truly embracing her talent. Every lesson she taught, every note she played, felt like a step further from the quiet, underestimated woman she once was. Her confidence had blossomed, and with it, a deep sense of purpose. She still worked at Merton's, but now it was more of a home base, a place where she could take a break from the hustle and bustle of her new life as a performer and teacher. As she walked into the restaurant one evening, ready for her shift, she noticed something different in the air. The usual rhythm of clattering dishes and busy chatter seemed a little quieter, as if there was a sense of anticipation that she couldn't quite place. It was then that Mario, the head chef, approached her with a look of excitement. "Lily, I've got some news," he said, his eyes lighting up. "The owner of the restaurant wants you to play for a high-profile event next month. It's a fundraiser for a local charity, and it's going to be big. This could be your chance to perform in front of some serious people. It's a huge opportunity." Lily's heart skipped a beat. A fundraiser? Playing for an event like that was different. She had played for private dinners and smaller gatherings, but this was going to be a whole new level. Her mind raced as she thought about the audience, the expectations. It was one thing to play for a room of restaurant guests, but another entirely to perform for a crowd of philanthropists and community leaders. The pressure was on, but at the same time, it felt like the perfect challenge, a moment to showcase everything she had worked for. "I'm in," Lily said, her voice steady despite the storm of nerves brewing inside her. Mario smiled and clapped her on the back. "I knew you'd say that. Don't worry, you'll do great. Just remember, play from the heart, like you always do." Over the next few weeks, Lily practiced tirelessly. She picked out the perfect pieces for the event, ones that would not only demonstrate her technical skill, but also her emotional depth. The pieces she chose were a mix of classical and modern, each with its own unique style and mood. She wanted to give the audience a range of emotions, to transport them through the music. She wanted to leave a lasting impression. As the date of the fundraiser approached, Lily's nerves began to mount. She had never performed in front of such an important crowd. The thought of it was both thrilling and overwhelming. The night before the event, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake in her bed, her mind running through the pieces she had chosen, mentally rehearsing the movements of her fingers on the keys. What if she made a mistake? What if the audience didn't appreciate her performance? What if? No, she couldn't think that way. She had already proven to herself that she was capable. She had shown the world that she was more than just a waitress. She was a pianist. The night of the fundraiser, Lily arrived at the venue early, her heart racing as she walked into the grand ballroom. The room was beautifully decorated, with sparkling chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and elegant tables set up for the guests. The atmosphere was one of sophistication and wealth, and Lily felt a wave of intimidation wash over her. She had been here before, as a waitress, but this time it was different. She wasn't here to serve drinks and food. She was here to perform. As the event began, Lily sat at the grand piano, her fingers hovering over the keys. The guests mingled, chatting and laughing, unaware of the magic that was about to unfold. When the time came for her to perform, Lily took a deep breath and began to play. At first, the music was soft, soothing, and graceful. But as she progressed through the pieces, her fingers grew more confident, her heart more open. She played with everything she had, her soul poured into every note. The room grew quiet as the guests stopped talking and turned their attention to her. There was something about the way she played that drew them in. It wasn't just her skill, but the emotion she conveyed with every movement of her hands. As the last note of her final piece echoed through the room, there was a moment of stunned silence. And then the applause began. It started slow, but quickly grew louder, the sound of genuine appreciation filling the air. Lily stood up from the piano, her chest swelling with pride. She had done it. She had stepped out of her comfort zone and played for a crowd of influential people, and they had responded. They had listened to her music, felt the emotion behind it, and appreciated her talent. She wasn't just a waitress or a teacher. She was an artist. As the event continued, many of the guests came up to her to compliment her on her performance. Some even asked about her future plans, intrigued by the woman who had captivated the room with nothing but her music. Lily could hardly believe it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She had stepped into the spotlight, and the world had taken notice. The night ended with the event's success, and as Lily walked out of the venue, she couldn't help but smile. She had taken a leap, and it had paid off. She had proven to herself, and to everyone else, that she was capable of so much more than she had ever imagined. Months after the fundraiser, Lily Green found herself standing at a crossroads, yet again. Her life had evolved in ways she had never expected, and now, with her teaching career thriving and her music gaining attention, there was a new sense of possibility in the air. But the quiet moments she had once craved were becoming fewer and farther between. It was early morning, and Lily had just finished teaching a young student, a shy teenager named Sophia, who was just beginning to discover her own love for the piano. As Lily adjusted the sheet music on the piano stand, she found herself smiling. Teaching had become something more than a job for her. It was a way to connect, to inspire, and to give back. As Sophia left, thanking her with a shy but sincere smile, Lily stood by the piano for a moment, reflecting on everything she had accomplished. She had come so far from the quiet, uncertain woman she had been, and yet, she could feel there was still so much more to explore. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. She pulled it out and read the message. It was from Linda, the owner of the music school. Lily, I've been thinking about your performance at the fundraiser. I've received several inquiries from people who want to book you for private events. There's even talk about you performing at a gala for a prestigious arts organization. This could be a big step for you. Let's discuss it when you have a moment. Lily's heart skipped a beat. A gala? She had never considered herself a headline act for such events, but the possibility felt real. For a moment, she hesitated. Was she ready for this? Could she handle the pressure of performing in front of such an important crowd? As the thought lingered, she remembered the moments when she first doubted her abilities, when she hid behind her piano, afraid to share her talent. She had proven herself in so many ways already. This was just another step forward. Lily texted Linda back, her fingers typing quickly. I'm interested. Let's talk about the details. The conversation was set for later that day, and as Lily prepared for her next lesson, she felt a wave of anticipation. The opportunity felt huge, but it also felt like the right time to take another leap. That evening, after her lessons were done, she met with Linda at the music school. The room was quiet, the only sound coming from the soft notes of a piano being played in the background by another instructor. Linda greeted her warmly and motioned for her to sit down. So, about the gala, Linda began, her voice full of enthusiasm. It's an invitation-only event with a high-profile guest list. The organizers want someone who can bring both elegance and emotion to the evening. I believe you're the perfect fit for this. Lily nodded slowly, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. I'm honored that they think of me, she said. But I've never performed in front of such an important crowd before. I don't want to disappoint anyone. Linda smiled reassuringly. Lily, you've already proven you have the talent. What you need now is the confidence to own the moment. You've always played from the heart, and that's what matters. Trust in that, and everything else will fall into place. Lily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Linda's words. Okay, she said, her voice steady. I'm ready. Over the next few weeks, Lily threw herself into preparing for the gala. She selected pieces that resonated with her, a blend of classical compositions and more contemporary works, each piece chosen for its ability to evoke emotion and captivate an audience. The days leading up to the event were filled with practice, but Lily's nerves were gradually replaced by excitement. She had come to realize that this wasn't just a performance. It was an opportunity to show herself, to step into the role she had always been meant to play. The night of the gala arrived, and Lily entered the venue with a sense of calm determination. The ballroom was stunning, with chandeliers overhead casting a soft, golden light on the guests mingling below. It was a glamorous event, full of influential people from all walks of life. And as Lily walked to the grand piano positioned at the center of the room, she felt a mix of nerves and excitement. She took her seat, feeling the cool surface of the keys beneath her fingers. The room quieted as she began to play. The first notes were soft and gentle, setting a tone of elegance and grace. As she played, she could feel the energy in the room shift. The guests turned their attention to her, drawn in by the beauty of the music, by the raw emotion she poured into each note. The sound of the piano filled the space, creating a connection between her and the audience that was undeniable. By the time she reached the final piece, Lily was no longer aware of the crowd. She was lost in the music, in the joy of playing, and in the realization that she had come a long way. The last note echoed through the room, and for a brief moment, there was complete silence. Then, the applause began. It was immediate, overwhelming, and full of admiration. Lily stood, a smile tugging at her lips, as the room erupted into applause. She had done it. Not only had she played for an audience of influential people, but she had also shared a piece of herself with them. She had proven that she was more than just a woman behind a piano. She was an artist, and this was only the beginning. The months following the gala were filled with a steady stream of events, private performances, and continued growth for Lily Green. What had once seemed like a distant dream was now her reality. She was no longer just a waitress at Merton's or a piano teacher at the local music school. She had become a sought-after performer, respected for her ability to bring emotion and depth to every note. Each performance she gave, whether at a corporate gala, an intimate dinner, or a community fundraiser, added to her reputation as a pianist who could touch the hearts of her listeners. One evening, after another successful event, Lily sat in the break room at Merton's, her fingers lightly tracing the edges of her water glass. The buzz of the restaurant seemed distant, almost as if she were in a different world altogether. It had been a long night, and though she felt the satisfaction of a job well done, there was a part of her that longed for the quiet moments she had once cherished. As she sat in thought, Mario entered the room, carrying a tray of freshly made pastries for the staff. He set it down on the counter and looked at Lily with a knowing smile. "You're doing great, Lily. I can see it in your eyes," he said, his voice warm but with a hint of concern. "You've taken on so much. How are you holding up?" Lily met his gaze and smiled, though the exhaustion was clear in her eyes. "I'm okay," she replied softly. "It's just a lot to manage sometimes. Between teaching, performing, and the events, it's more than I ever expected, but in a good way." Mario nodded, understanding. "It's a lot, I know, but you've got the talent, and more importantly, you've got the heart. Just don't forget to take a breath every now and then. You don't have to do everything at once." His words lingered in the air, and Lily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She had been so focused on proving herself, on seizing every opportunity, that she hadn't taken the time to just be. It was as though she had been running non-stop, always pushing forward, and in the process, she had lost sight of the small joys she had once taken for granted. That night, after her shift, Lily sat by the piano at home, her fingers resting on the keys. She began to play softly, the familiar sound of the piano filling the room with a sense of peace. As she played, the music seemed to ground her, reminding her of why she had started this journey in the first place. It wasn't about recognition or success. It was about the connection she felt through the music, the way it spoke to her soul, and allowed her to express the emotions she couldn't always put into words. The more she played, the more she realized that she needed balance in her life. She needed to make space for the quiet moments, to reconnect with the simple joy of playing just for herself. The next day, Lily decided to make some changes. She would still teach and perform, but she would set boundaries to ensure she didn't burn out. She would take time for herself, to practice and explore new music, and to simply enjoy the peace of her own company. She also reached out to Linda, letting her know that she wanted to scale back on the number of events she was taking on. Linda was understanding and supportive, reassuring her that it was okay to prioritize her well-being. With this new perspective, Lily approached each day with a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer rushing to fill every moment with activity. Instead, she allowed herself the space to grow, to learn, and to truly appreciate the journey she had been on. As the weeks passed, Lily's performances became even more powerful. Her music was deeper, richer, as though each note was infused with the lessons she had learned along the way. She was no longer just playing for an audience. She was playing for herself, and in doing so, she had found her voice in a way she never thought possible. One evening, after a particularly moving performance at a small, intimate gathering, Lily found herself standing by the piano, her heart still racing from the emotion of the piece she had just played. The guests had gathered around, applauding and praising her, but all she could feel was a deep sense of fulfillment. She had found her place, her purpose, and it was through her music that she could truly make a difference. That night, as she left the venue and stepped into the cool evening air, Lily felt a sense of contentment that she had never known before. She had come so far, not just as a musician, but as a person. She had faced her fears, embraced her talents, and learned to trust herself. She was living the life she had always dreamed of, and for the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. As she walked home, the soft sound of her footsteps echoed in the quiet streets, and she couldn't help but smile. The journey was far from over, but she knew one thing for sure. She was exactly where she was meant to be.